Well, Candace, thank you for coming on the show. I know you're very busy, but I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm honored to be here. I'm excited to talk all the
Yeah.
time.
So, did you train today at all?
I did, had quads today, have my a split, 3 days lower body split. So Wednesdays are quads.
Okay. What's the split like? If Wednesdays are quads, what are the other days?
So Monday, Wednesday, Fridays are lower body. So as you know, I'm a wellness competitor. So glutes focused only Monday, and then we do quads, sometimes finish with glutes, and then Friday is hamstrings and glutes.
Yeah, yeah. You guys hit your division hits legs and glutes like
Brutal.
really hard. Yeah, it is brutal. I'll tell you, some of the girls that I see just training legs, they train way harder than some of the guys do. It's like, I mean, they're like burying their legs. If some of the guys were training like that, they'd have much better legs than they do, you know. It's that training is intense.
And I think a lot of it is the more you're in it and a big mindset aspect too, right? What you focus on expands. And I think for the most part, especially like I know the men that I've coached, a lot of people just avoid the leg day. Like the leg day is the
Hmm.
one day they hate. I had a client recently just tell me like, "Hey, I think we have too many lower body days. Like, can we?" And I looked at his program. I'm like, "Dude, I only give you 2 out of 5 days." Like, that was code for I just want to do it once a week, and we shifted it, right? Everybody has different goals, but I think it's like the mindset towards it. Like if you already know you're gonna hate leg day, you're not gonna program or do more than than you need to.
True. It's like I always have, different times in my life, I've had different relationships with leg day. It's like some parts of my life, I was for years I loved it, then I dreaded it. Now it's like a love-hate type of thing. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I don't. It's weird. Legs are just one of those body parts that elicit a lot of emotional responses, like nobody says that about biceps, nobody's like, oh, I'm gonna
That is
train
true.
arms.
That
Yeah.
is true. That is
So
true.
are you in the camp of more volume, more, more days for the same part, or are you in more in the camp of just like heavy, single day a week type of thing?
Yeah, I think I'm probably the first, the
Hmm.
more days, and I think a lot of it has been just from the results from how my body responds, and I couldn't say that's a blanket statement for everyone. Yeah, for me, and I think again, it goes back to like perspective. As a 43-year-old female and my metabolism being something that's important to me, having more muscle mass is critical outside of being a bodybuilder, but to also like just for health, for longevity, for my metabolism. And so, being that our legs are one of the largest muscle groups, I am going to hit it hard as a means of protection and longevity, and then of course as a bodybuilder, so that I can grow that body part. We've seen some significant growth over the last year, just shifting technique, and it's been a lot of my muscle connection. I would say I've always trained heavy, and the results I've gotten this past year, not necessarily focused on how heavy I was going, have been pretty significant. So it's challenged the way I look at training as a whole.
Yeah. It's interesting because, as you get older, like your training does change. I was listening to oh my gosh, who am I thinking of? A popular bodybuilder on the male side, open bodybuilder. I don't know, my mind is going blank now. But Nick Walker,
Oh yeah.
and he was saying that how his training has changed because he's been kind of criticized a little bit over his like training lately, but people can't really criticize too much because he's getting amazing results. So
Oh.
he just doesn't do the crazy lifts where you possibly can get injured and all these things that he used to do when he was, when he was younger. He's more focused, more intentional with his weightlifting, and he's obviously getting, I mean, he's probably looked best now than he ever has before. So he was just talking about the fact of, getting a little older, a little smarter with your training. So I
And
think
you
that's a good
cannot
idea.
argue results, right? So if he's getting results, it's one of those things that like if it's working right now, why would you stop?
Sure.
Because you can go back to like, well, the data and science says, and but still what I'm doing is working. So like I'm
Mhm.
literally the science. I am the data.
Right. You're the response to look what you're doing. It's like,
Yeah.
why fix something that's not broken?
Yeah.
Exactly. Totally. I get it. So how did you get into like training and bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding for that matter?
I initially it was just a bucket list situation. In 2014, I was a new mom. I've always been fascinated with the muscular physique before it was a thing, prior to social media days. And I remember even just being young and obsessing back in the magazine days, over Oxygen magazine and just seeing these beautiful physiques but study these and eat the recipes. But there was a limiting belief that I had that my body could never do that. It was just something that I admired, but I could never look like this. And in 2014, I think I'd stacked up some wins on a personal level with my business. I was, doing really well in my first business that I started. And I think it built up a level of confidence that I wanted to do it more so to prove to myself that it was possible because I already had built the discipline in business and in life, but I wanted this new level of challenge, something that forced me to operate at like an elite standard. And it really took one person who kind of spoke life into me. I remember being this guy who was in the bodybuilding world and being in his smoothie shop, and he was like, "Have you ever considered doing a bodybuilding competition?" And that question, it just opened up possibility for me. All of a sudden, I was like, now I can't unthink this. Like,
Mhm.
what would it look like to do this? My firstborn was almost 2 years old. So I was just this new mom. Like, how powerful would that be? Not only to be able to do it, but doing it as a new mom. And so I recognized that bodybuilding started to give me the structure. I felt like more purposeful. It helped me even in my leadership, in my business. And so back then it was a bikini. I did a bikini competition and it was fun and checked the box. Had my second daughter about 2 years later, my second child.
Mhm.
And I wanted to compete again. I just didn't know where I belonged in divisions because I had done bikini and I knew I could go back there. At the time, I was very skinny. I was doing like extreme diets just to stay thin. Back when keto was new, I would do that. I would do high intensity interval training, the classes like Orange Theory. So I was just a very skinny, low muscle body. So I could have done bikini, but I didn't. I wanted to get back into the gym and start building a body. And at the time, I was only aware of the next division being figure, which I probably could have done because genetically my back goes beast mode really quick. That's a beautiful physique in the gym, just as a professional. Like, I didn't want that body navigating off seasons and trying to fit clothes that feel feminine. And so wellness was new. I was 39 and I remember telling my husband like, "Hey, I think I want to like step into this next decade in the best shape of my life." And I found out about wellness and I looked nothing like wellness. So it felt like a big challenge for me. Like, if I'm going to do this, I want to like build the body that I actually want. And so in 2021, I stepped into the stage again and did great. I mean, even though I didn't have like what wellness looks like today, my first show, I won novice, true novice, and the second show won my division, my division. So it gave me a lot of encouragement to like really take this serious. And I loved the aspect of what it was doing for me outside of bodybuilding, like how I was showing up in my business and in my
Mm.
family.
So would you say then that genetically are you more inclined to wellness, or would you say you kind of built your way into wellness?
I 1000% built my way to wellness. And that's why, a lot of people, of course, genetics have, I do think my body responds well. Like, I put on
Mhm.
muscle fairly easy, but my adherence is really high. Like, I'm not scared to like eat what I need to eat and all the things. So, but my body does respond quick. But genetically, like if we were to go before bodybuilding
Mhm.
for wellness, I used to joke that I was trapped in a 13-year-old boy's body. My hips and my waist were like the same measurements, like very straight. I have a more V-tapered back. My shoulders, like even genetically where I carry body fat, it's like usually in the upper body. So yeah, I mean, figure was probably my more natural body type. And my first coach really tried to get me to lean that way. And it
Mhm.
was enticing because you hear everything about people tell you about genetics, but I mean, the word bodybuilding it's a body you get to build. So outside of the stage, I still have to live with this body. And I will say that being able to build this, like the level of confidence it's given me has, translated into other areas of my life because it's not even just about the way I look. It's like that I've been able to do something that felt impossible at one point in my life.
Yeah, that's so interesting because like a large chunk of the women that I speak to, it's the opposite. It's that they were never gonna, get into bikini. They were never gonna be, that small. They're kind of genetically more inclined to have a more fuller physique. And so when wellness came around, they were very they were shoo-in for those divisions. And I was talking to Yarishna a little while back, and she was saying that I showed her a picture when we first met years ago, and she was super thin in bikini, and then now she's in wellness and very muscular, and it
Mhm.
just looks like night and day. And she was telling me how she would like basically just not train and try to diet down just to fit in bikini. So you're kind of the odd person in the situation because you actually could fit in bikini and figure, and then but just decided this is the look that I'm going for. So
Yes. And I think also too, on the other end, one of the things we see a lot in wellness division is a lot of women feel that they may belong in wellness because they hold body fat in their lower body. And I would also challenge that to say just because you carry a lot of fat in that area doesn't mean you're wellness either. Because
true.
what we are seeing a lot on the stage is a lot of these women that are, signing up to do wellness, but they're still, not conditioned
Hmm.
and may have done better in a different division if they had just gotten conditioned. So I would also say too is it's not necessarily where you carry your body fat. It's how your body responds to the type of training that you do that can build out that muscle. Like if I was training as hard as I have been and just was struggling to put on muscle, then maybe at that point I would have reconsidered and done figure or gone into bikini. Even at my first national competition, I had dieted down so hard that one of the feedback was like, you would have gone pro if you had done bikini. And it broke my
Hmm.
heart. I was like, I don't want to go pro in bikini. Like I am
Right.
wellness. I don't care how long it takes. And it was fuel for me because I realized at that point that I had to change the way I was training because, obviously what I was doing wasn't working.
Right, right, right. I get it. And I think you're right about that too, like from that standpoint, because um I often like something that happens with men a lot of times, and it might happen with women as well, is especially in the off season, they'll often say, well, my weight is so much. I've gained like this much of weight, almost thinking like they're developing, they're growing in muscle mass. And then when they die down, they realize, oh, I haven't gained much muscle at all. So I always feel like, if you're starting out, your structure it will be hard to see your structure if you're carrying a lot of body fat. So you might appear that you're looking one way, but then when you cut down the body fat, you kind of start seeing your real structure come out. So to your point, I agree with that for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. So how long have now you've been in wellness? How many?
Well, my fourth year. This is my
Fourth
fourth
year.
year.
Okay.
So
So what are the goals, at this point in the division?
I love training the way I train, and so I
Mhm.
don't have any plans to stop.
Mhm.
So I think it's just as long as it takes,
Mhm.
as long as my family's in agreement, this is a
Mhm.
family commitment. I have two kids, I have a husband, and super grateful for their support. Like every year that when we start the year, we talk about it. Are we going to compete this year? What does that look like for the family? What kind of sacrifices are we going to take? What does
Mhm.
that mean for vacations? Like all of those things. And as long as they're continue to be supportive and in agreement with these goals. I want to continue
Mhm.
building. And of course, everybody who does this wants their pro card. I want to go pro, and I'm also going to live with this body that I'm building. So I'm just going to continue building the body that I want until, we see what happens.
Sure, sure, I get it. And that's the thing, that's a unique thing about bodybuilding. It's unlike any other sport because whatever you do in the sport also affects you outside of the sport. And like no other sport is like that. You go play basketball, you do something else. Once you're off the court or once you're off the field, you're just another person. But with bodybuilding, you carry the sport into your daily life. So
Yes.
it's
And
important.
there is
Go
truth
ahead.
to that. I mean, I've seen and heard podcasts where people are talking about how there is something different about you when you show up, especially if you're like in sales or you have a business,
Hmm.
when you show up and you're physically fit, it already tells a story before they even have a chance to know you. So even just the opportunities that it gives us, stepping into, sales appointments or
Hmm.
taking on clients, things where people see like this person has enough discipline to get the job done. And I think that's a powerful statement to be able to help, partner with people and letting them know that you're willing to do what it takes.
Sure, sure. So, is it safe to assume you are in sales? Is that what you do
Yeah,
for?
so
Okay.
my husband and I have a real estate business. We've been in real estate for over 20 years.
Uh-huh.
So that's what he does primarily, and I'm like kind of side support, and I'm a
Right.
coach. And so I actually started off coaching realtors. I was a business coach for a few years and coached realtors throughout the United
Hmm.
States and building their business. And one of the things that continually came up was people were coming to me thinking they wanted business support. And what we found is they hit a wall because they stopped prioritizing their health or they stopped
Hmm.
prioritizing themselves. Like it was everything had to drop because I have these massive goals. They're picking up, fast food or missing meals, not exercising anymore, sluggish. Now it's impacted their marriage. I mean, they're just coming to me like, I don't know, thinking that it's just business support. And so
Right.
my passion, just kind of happened simultaneously as I started becoming a bodybuilder and taking courses, on nutrition and just being able to be a solid site support for my clients. And so I still take on some business clients, that need help with systems in their businesses and, a lot of new startup businesses. Yeah, my passion and what I'm working around mostly now in coaching is, lifestyle coaching.
Lifestyle, like fitness coaching, or lifestyle
Yeah.
like in
Yeah,
okay.
in general, life coaching, but
Hmm.
we formulate these conversations around one of the pillars of being health because I think a lot of that comes back to that. Even when people come to me for life coaching, that's usually one of the areas that, plays a part into whatever they're navigating in their life.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's amazing how being healthy is so powerful. It's if you can stay healthy, develop a good routine in in the way you eat and the way you work out, and just kind of it will facilitate benefits in other places in your life. And sometimes, like you said, people don't know that that's what's out of
Mhm.
place. They think it's other things, so they try to solve other things, but really what's going on is they're just their body is run down from their choices,
Mhm.
and once you kind of correct that, everything else kind of falls into place. So,
Yeah, burnout, which is really
mhm.
huge in the real estate profession. I think just really, and even how it impacts, your relationships, being able to
Yeah.
have energy, not having that mental fatigue, being able to be present. So those are things that, really are health impacts as well.
Yeah, I work in emergency medicine, and one thing that in medicine, or in the hospitals in particular, that you see is just a lot of burnout, tons of burnout, and people just get exhausted because there's really a lack of work-life balance. And even though they tell you, oh, you need it, or the hospitals, try to kind of in some way let people know that that's important. In reality, the work kind of pushes you not to have that. And so it's important to really consciously take the steps to, make sure that you have that work-life balance. Otherwise, everything else just kind of falls apart. So,
And it's easy to fall into that because,
mhm,
that is culturally what is deemed as normal.
mhm,
You think about it when you talk to somebody and you're just, how are you doing? Oh, good, just busy. That's a
mhm.
normal response. Oh, okay, me
Yeah.
too. Like nobody stops and be like, tell me about that, right? Like unpack that. And when you start talking about it, you'd probably be like, oh crap, I have a lot on my plate. I need to slow the hell down, right? But we don't do that because it's just normalized how busy we are, and
Yeah.
it's not some badge of honor to take on all these tasks. Like, you think that's really something that, I'm trying to be intentional about having conversations with, friends, loved ones, just, like, what's the last time you've done something for you? What does unplugging
Mhm.
look like? Even I was talking today to, I was in an appointment and I was talking to the girl and she was like, you're right. I scrolling all the time, even if I'm watching a movie, like I'm scrolling, it's like this need to be busy and that
Yeah.
all contributes to the distress in our bodies. There's that healthy stress, the eustress, and then you have the distress that causes like more of the damage to your body. And, all the little things that we unintentionally contribute to that distress is breaking you down, and that leads to burnout.
Yeah, yeah, true. The interesting thing you mentioned about always wanting to be busy. I always also find sometimes people have a hard time being alone with their thoughts. So
Hmm.
they're always occupying their mind with something, it could be something as meaningless as social media and other things, but they're always like occupying themselves with something. And it's like sometimes it's good just to sit there, in quiet place and just be alone with your thoughts, and that can be a real big benefit too. So,
Yeah. And it's one thing to know it and then to actually practice it, because I will say I struggle myself. Sometimes I have to, check myself. I'm sitting down to eat a meal and I'm like trying to get work done or doing something like, okay, Candy, slow down. You can have a meal and not be on your phone, or you can go into the bathroom and not take your phone. Like, can you? Like, yeah, I
yeah.
guess I can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm in the same boat too, totally. Yeah. So it's like I'm saying these things, but I'm kind of also like saying them to myself as well,
Yes,
because
exactly.
it's exactly the same thing that I struggle with too. But I know you said that, the goal is just to progress, to keep doing bodybuilding as long as it works out for the family. Do you have specific, um, like body goals from the last shows that you've done? Is there something that, like in particular, that you're going to be working on this upcoming off season, or
Yeah,
how's that
I mean,
working?
obviously grow as a whole, but I really need to add some depth to my glutes. I want some chiseled tie-ins for wellness. That's a necessity. I've seen progress year after year, so I'm, in the right trajectory. I just, I'm excited to try a new method. We've seen there's no wrong prep. There is no wrong, because it's all data. You learn about yourself, and what works at one show may not work at another show, which I know you know this.
Right.
And so what I feel is that I've collected a lot of really good data the last couple of years. And, so I feel like this coming year is going to look very different in a good
Hmm.
way, because I'm willing to try new things. And so yeah, there's an emphasis to grow as a whole. My lower body, I spent last year really not training upper body much. I mean, I'd be embarrassed to even admit like how little I trained my upper body, but it gave me that illusion that because in wellness,
Hmm.
that's the only division they don't want you proportionate. They want you bigger
Hmm.
on bottom, bikini on top. And I was very balanced before, which was never any feedback from judges. It was just something I knew because it took time for me to build out my lower body, and I was already that V taper upper body. So I didn't train the upper body a whole lot, and it gave me that illusion that the lower body was bigger. So I started picking up upper body again, just a little bit. But I definitely want, again, because I want to bodybuild, I definitely like the shoulders, and so I'm just cautious on what I'm doing for back so that I'm not building out my lats too much, but being able to keep tone. So yeah, just continue to build out. I think for wellness, glutes is probably where I need the most growth though.
That was it difficult to stop working upper body mentally?
Initially, it was because I love training back. It's fun. Also it's a big muscle group, so it contributes to a faster metabolism. But I saw the way my body was shifting, and I remember one day like looking in an off season, you sending off season progress pictures to my coach. I'm like, oh my gosh, I look like a wellness girl. Like it was like the first time I had an aha, because I've been working at this for years, and all of a sudden I'm like, I actually look wellness. And so
Yeah.
it just shifted the way I looked at my training. It's like I'm here to bodybuild, and I'm building the body I want, and so that's the reason why I'm training. And then once prep started, I started picking up upper body again more, just to keep some muscle, some volume, some pump, but it wasn't anymore like to grow.
Yeah. It's interesting how like you can put your eyes on like a picture and kind of tell, okay, well, like you look like a wellness girl. You look, there was a girl that was I was training, and everything she was doing great. She was, going intense in the gym, was eating the right things, but it took a while to get that wellness look. It's like it's just it takes some that development and then just strategic training, to get there. And yeah, it's like when you see it for the first time, you're like, oh, like this is it. Like this
Yeah.
is what. what we're trying to strive for, this look that you're getting. So it's a very exciting like moment,
It
so
is. And a lot of it, and I'm glad I have great people in my corner because sometimes they're like set me straight. But, we're comparing ourselves to social media pictures, which we know can
right,
be like the curated, perfect angles,
right.
lighting, edits, all the things. And so, there were times that I've just, even this last prep, I would tell like my trainer that I don't look wellness. I feel like I'm starting to look like a bikini girl. And he's like, girl, get out of your head. Like, have you seen that girl in person? Or have you seen, also too, I train in a gym with a lot of Olympians and pros. And so like my standards of what I need to look like, thankfully, are very high. And so who
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
comparing myself to is keeping me humble and giving me that drive and that work ethic. So it's also too like who are you comparing yourself to, right? Like if we're comparing ourselves to curated pictures or people who've been doing this longer or who are already at a level that you're trying to get to, just shifts perspective for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like the comparison game can be beneficial, but it can also be detrimental. If it can be beneficial to motivate you to strive for a look, but then sometimes, like you said, in that case, it can really like kind of hit your mind a little bit, kind of be detrimental to you. Like what do you think about social media as far as like fitness is concerned? It's blown up. There's people that are not even competitive that are extremely popular, through social media.
Mhm.
Do you think it's a benefit for the fitness industry, or do you think it detracts from it?
I think it's a powerful tool for the
Mhm.
fitness industry. And when the comparison trap becomes a problem, is when the story you're telling yourself is I'm not enough, or it's having you challenge and question your identity. That's more like what I tell people is unfollow them until you're at a better place. It's not them, it's you. Like, same thing.
Mhm.
When I have somebody that makes me feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not enough, or I'm not big enough, or I'm not where I need to be,
Mhm.
that's internal work. That has nothing to do with them. And so it's more of a reminder of like when when the growth really happens, you can look at these pictures and see, wow, this is awesome that this is possible. Like, look where she was, sometimes, and I
Mhm.
would do that. I'd see like, oh my gosh, she started in 2021 too, and look at how big she is, and she's already going to Olympia, and look at me, like I'm like, okay, wait, settle down. She got involved with
Yeah.
like a really good coach, and she's also like 15 years younger than you and doesn't have kids and doesn't have anything else. Like you just settle down,
Hmm.
right? Like you're on your own journey. Of course, there is a lot of challenges when it comes to when we think about like people monetizing social media. So it does have to be curated, like their pictures, what they're putting out. All the content that's coming out is marketing from a monetization standpoint. So we also have to keep that in mind when we're doing these comparison traps. The other thing, though, that I would say where as a mom, is, where social media is like a kind of I draw the line in the sand, is I wouldn't want
Hmm.
my children without fully developed brains to be on social media because children don't know the difference. All of a
Hmm.
sudden, it's like, they don't realize everybody has filters and that people, chisel out their muscles and do things to make themselves. And that is not healthy. Like, what we don't want is a generation of children coming up that like feel inadequate before they even have
Hmm.
a chance to try. So it's,
And
yeah.
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, so that's just kind of where, like, of course, very mixed feelings. I think it's a powerful tool. I'm super, super grateful for it. It's been a big way that we built out our businesses. And so,
Hmm.
and even just connections, like even, being able to be on this podcast with you, like there's just so many opportunities because of it. So I think it's how we use it. Like it's a tool.
Yeah.
Are you using it to build something out, build a brand, to build relationships, or are you just mindlessly scrolling and is it consuming you to where it's taking actual life
Right.
moments?
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag, but I think the decisions need to be made on the personal level. It's kind of sometimes people brand social media as negative or positive, but I think it can be both. I think it's a personal, the way you personally use that social media. And you're absolutely right about the kids. That's the only thing. It's like if kids get to social media early, which they often do nowadays, it can be difficult. Especially growing up, as you're developing. You often have. I mean, if you think about, like, I think about myself, and you might have went through the same thing. I'm not sure, but like when you're young and you're developing, and you're often like think you're not good enough, physically not good enough, whatever the case may be. And so, on top of that, you have social media showing you all these people that are good enough. It's like at a young age, that could be pretty hard.
Yeah, it really is. And there's a really great book if anybody's ever interested on this specifically. It's called The Anxious Generation. And it really talks about how, the phones, the screens, social media has a profound impact on the level of anxiety and depression we're seeing in children because of that. So,
Mhm.
I'm not the popular parent in that instance. My seventh grader still doesn't have a phone. There's just some things that are non-negotiable for me
Mhm.
until I feel full peace at that. But my kids will tell me like, so everybody has a phone except for
Of
me. I'm sorry.
course. Yeah.
Blame it on your crappy mom.
I remember my first phone, and you and me are practically the same age. And my phone was a Nokia. It looked like a brick, so I was like, compared to now where phones are, it's amazing. I read this thing that said that the iPhone today has more computing power than the shuttle that took people to the moon in the 60s. And just to give it in perspective, of like where we are with these phones. So yeah, it's wild how things have progressed. So, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a good thing that you're limiting the use of phones for your kids, because I think it's a protection. So
Yeah. And
sure.
it goes for us too, right? Like it goes back to what we were talking about. It's a tool, and if it do you have it or does it have you?
Right, right. I think
So
that's yeah, good. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Do you have it or does it have you? Who owns who?
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was gonna also talk to you about, so we talked about training, but what about like your nutrition? Generally speaking, like do you stay lean throughout the off season? I know we're kind of coming up on an off season, so that's kind of what I'm tailoring my questions to. But do you stay lean during the off season, or do you try to pack in as many calories as you can?
The last couple years was the first time I had a coach that was on me, that I was accountable to on a weekly basis in and off season. My first 2 years in bodybuilding, I had a coach, but he didn't take off season, the way that at accountability level, the way he did prep. And I didn't know any different either. So I would say my body fat got more higher than it should have gone. And I say should have because it just makes prep a little bit harder and longer.
Hmm.
I think also too, I've grown as an athlete because I don't like at the beginning, it was like, oh, now I can have this, now I can have that. There was like this button that turns on and off, like I can and I can't. And as I've done a lot of the mindset work and working with clients, I realize that's part of the problem is when we look at food as good and bad and as forbidden and as, supposed to have that's really that restriction mindset is part of the problem. And so I open-minded, but I feel like if you are prioritizing protein and you're at least staying on that and the right complex carbs earlier in the day, even if you wanted to have like a free meal or bites of something, you're not going to eat more than you should. And so I am going to go into this off season a lot more mindful and hopefully stay a little bit leaner than I have in previous off seasons. We're off to a good start. I I am eating a lot, but it's directly related to the way I'm training. So even though I'm eating more than, I probably have
Yeah.
in previous off seasons, I do have more muscle and I'm still staying somewhat tight. So just kind of pace it here and as long as my strength continues to go up, I'll
Okay.
stay there. And then where I plateau in strength, that's probably where I'll increase again. The other aspect is, there's some opportunities that have come up, because of being in the fitness world, from branding, advertising, marketing,
Hmm.
opportunities that have come up, like paid opportunities. So I kind of want to stay marketable, so to
Right.
speak. I don't want to look like I don't bodybuild. And so,
Right. Well, I mean, I think that if you're going to be an athlete, and not you in particular, but just a person, if you're going to be an athlete, then you have to kind of somewhat look like an athlete all the way, all around the year. You can't be gaining so much body fat that people wonder if you even work out. And I think that's a hard thing for some people
um,
to understand because when they go in the off season, their idea is, well, I'm just going to pack in as many calories as I can. I'm going to lift, I'm going to build more muscle. And like we talked about earlier, sometimes that fat comes off and you haven't gained any muscle. So
that's
it's
right.
just, it's the right way to eat. Yes, you should increase your calories. I was just talking to my client about that. We're going to bump up the calories, but we're going to focus on protein first, and then we're going to eat for performance. So if you're gaining strength, if you're getting size, if you're not getting too fat, we're going to keep going. If that any of those things change, then we're going to reevaluate. And I think sometimes people just eat whatever. It's an excuse for them to eat as much as they can with no regard, and that's not what the off season is. I like the term improvement, season too.
Improvement season. I love
Yeah,
it too. But I think that's also one of the big issues in the bodybuilding space is a lot of people get into it for really the wrong reasons. And it becomes the area where the first time in their life they feel like there's a sense of control. So for the 16 weeks or 21 weeks, there's this level of control that feels empowering. But how disempowering is it to check out of that mindset and all of a sudden just like free for all, have what you want? Now, not only are you upset with yourself because you feel like you've lost the discipline, but you're now also feeling bad about yourself because you don't feel well. Your
Mhm.
body fat's very high. You don't look confident. You don't look like you're an athlete. And so I think it's almost like we need to take a step back and do the hard work when it comes towards our relationship with food, towards ourself, and having that self-respect and doing the uncomfortable work so that we can approach this with a healthier mindset. And I think that's one of the advantages that I would say I have doing this at my age is that I've gone through a lot of that hard work in
Yeah.
previous years before stepping into bodybuilding. And I don't know that I'd be able to do this in a healthy manner if I was in my 20s or even early 30s, because a lot of the way I looked was my identity, and
Mm.
so it was like this real like extreme dieting, extreme, workouts, and then it was either you're all in or you're not. And it's just not a healthy space to be like
Yeah,
personally.
yeah. No, totally. I get it. I get it. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So you did we have some questions from, the audience members. I know you sent me some things. I have some stuff. Some of them were already answered in the show, so I'm kind of just going to nitpick through them. The first one is, what do you think is the hardest thing for women when it comes to lifting weights, especially in the 30s and 40s?
Mm. Honestly, I would say it's that the whole idea that lifting weights is going to make you bulky. That is the thing that comes up with the most
Yeah.
with women and that I'm coaching or that I work partner with in their
Hmm.
30s and 40s is I just don't want to get bulky. It's almost like this warning, like, that's cool that you do this. I just don't want to get bulky. It's like a preface to I'm going to work super, super hard. I mean,
Right.
you really just cannot get bulky unless you're intentionally trying and you're eating like a power lifter.
Right, right.
And the truth is the exact opposite, right? Like muscle is your metabolism. And after 30, you just start losing lean muscle tissue naturally every year. So it's just a big part of building up that metabolism. It slows up aging, essentially.
Mhm.
And so having more muscle is just going to give you that energy levels that you need. You have more responsibilities in your 30s and 40s. You have kids, you have businesses and careers and families that you have to have more energy for. So I would say strength training is what really keeps you lean, strong, youthful, and energetic. It's to me, I say it's the real fountain of youth.
Yeah, the bulky thing is amazing to me. Like that people like still think that that's a thing because I had people tell me sometimes it's women too. It's the weirdest thing. So, but they'll say things like, "Oh yeah, like ask me questions like how to work out this and that," and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to get as big as you," and I'm like, 260 pounds and I'm a man. I'm like, there, like, in what world do you think this will happen? But I have to take a step back and kind of just be like, okay, these are people that know nothing about training, nothing
That's right.
about weightlifting. They're starting from scratch. All they've heard is just these random weird ideas. And so like I try not to like be
Yes.
offensive, but yeah, but I get questions like that, and they seem so ridiculous to me, but to them, it's like a very serious thing. They're like, I don't want to get bulky, I don't want to get big. I'm like, trust me, that's not a concern here. So,
The other thing too, 30s and 40s, like, because that's my era, my age,
mhm.
we grew up in a time where skinny was deemed as beautiful, right? Like the
Right,
Calvin
right.
Klein models, the very like lean body. So I think some of
Yes,
these women still have these ideas of that body type. Because I'll hear this also, like, oh, I think, your shape is amazing, but I don't want to have that much. I don't want my legs to be
right.
that big. So I'll be like, girl, I promise you'll never accidentally look like it's taken me 4 or 5 years to look like this.
Yeah, you're not gonna like fall into like top-notch bodybuilding physique on accident. It's like it's not gonna happen. You're not gonna fall into a national level physique on accident.
Yeah.
It's like people work extremely hard to even get remotely close to that. So, yeah, it's interesting. So, this isn't necessarily in the question. There was something concerning this a little later, but I was gonna go ahead and kind of like bounce something off of you. So you were talking about losing some lean muscle mass when you get kind of into your 30s and 40s. What do you think about like hormone replacement, PED use? Do you have like a viewpoint on that?
I think that, having access to tools is all, subjective on each person, but they're
Mhm.
simply tools. I'm a big proponent of peptide therapy, of
Mhm.
having access to these tools because the reality is our bodies do change, right? It is
Mhm.
a little bit harder to keep on the muscle. And so having this support, of course, if you're with being monitored, you have a clinician, you have a good relationship with
Mhm.
lab work, all of that. But I've seen some, big results because I've been open-minded to it. I think there's also
Mhm.
this misconception that like when people say like, oh yeah, I'm 100% natural. Well, yeah, but you feel like shit, like your energy levels are super low. Like that's not something you should be excited about, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So what does the conversation need to look like so that you could see that maybe you don't have to live the rest of your life feeling like this?
Yeah.
And so that's really where the avenue that I like to go to because there are some
Mhm.
people who just like taught to like, oh no, like I would never, and I'm 100% like against this, and it's like okay, but you're
Right.
also like crashing in the middle of the day, drinking boatloads of caffeine, and
Right.
you got to reframe it.
Yeah, it's interesting because people like won't take and just from the male standpoint, people won't take a shot of testosterone, but they'll, smoke like their whole life, or they'll do so, or they'll drink crazy amounts of alcohol, or whatever crazy vices that they might have. But oh no, I can't do that. That would be, that'd be wrong. I'm
For
like,
men,
okay.
a lot of it is the story they're telling themselves is I'm not manly enough if I have to supplement with test. Like that is
Okay.
really what the root issue is. Some of that's cultural. Like there are some
Hmm.
cultures where it's like, oh, you got to man up and you got to be
Hmm.
like this on your own. And if you have to have some kind of intervention, you're not man enough. So again, it goes back to the story they're telling themselves. Yet we
Sure.
know every time a guy, integrates that into their life, it's like 100%
Better.
always positive feedback.
Right, right, exactly. And so, but from a competitive standpoint, especially like in your division,
hmm
what do you think these things are often utilized?
Oh
PEDs
yeah.
are often
So
utilized in wellness.
yeah, I've
Go ahead.
seen it progress significantly in the division. And there are just some lines I won't cross because like this sport is not it doesn't pay my bills. It's literally just a passion, and I'm not willing to
Right,
compromise my femininity
right,
for some, to just to, get any kind of medal.
right.
So, I'm willing to be open-minded to ways to grow, to support my hard, I have, incredible work ethic. And so, but at the same time, it's not going to be at all costs. Like
Mhm.
me being feminine is you
It's
know,
more
first and
important.
foremost, and then also my hormone health and you know, being able to protect that. And so I have a little girl and she's watching me, and so I also have to be mindful that everything that I do is your kids don't do what you say, they do what you do. Like,
Mhm.
would I be okay if she wanted to do the things that I do? So I
Yeah,
take that into
I
consideration.
get it. I get it. Do you think like wellness is getting too big? And the only reason I say that, I don't know how much you keep up with like the
Mhm.
competitions and everything, but recently, and it seems to be the talk of the town. Last podcast, that same thing, same conversation I had with someone. There was a girl, Tiffany, I think is her
Yep.
Instagram name, and she's very muscular, very developed girl, and she won pretty recently. And she's got a great physique, I mean, no doubt, but she is on the more muscular, bigger size.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think about like the
Yeah.
progression of wellness?
So for a while, it was getting a little like about 2 years ago, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore at a competitive level. Like, I love the physique. I just
Mm,
don't know if that's what it's going to take because they were just getting too massive. A lot of the girls, their jaw lines were starting to look very
mhm,
masculine, voices, you know, deepening. And it was just seemed to be like a consistent thing amongst many of the Olympians. And so
mhm,
I do think there was some course correction because then the judges, like I first saw it at the Republic of Texas. I don't know if it was last year.
mhm.
One of the girls, who was the one that won? I can't think of her name, but she almost looked like a bikini girl. And they,
Okay.
it was like there was like a turning point where all of a sudden now they were starting to award like a different physique, and they were not these massive. It was like that
Mhm,
wellness look, you know, lean on top and the fuller on bottom, and it was just like this
mhm.
overall package. And so it kind of gave me hope as somebody who's not willing to go, you know, to extreme lengths. And so I was kind of shocked with the whole Tef thing because I was like, there's no way. I mean, she actually left wellness to go into physique because she's so developed and so big, and then
Mhm.
came back to wellness. And then there was some criticism like, oh, yeah, no, she would never make it. So when she actually won, it was kind of like, huh, I'm curious where this is going. It's
Mhm.
not, it's a beautiful physique. It's just not something I'd want for myself. And if I had to get to those extreme lengths, I'd be out.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting because she is definitely at the top of like muscularity when that's going as far as that's concerned. So for her to win was interesting. I will say, do you feel like maybe they're because on the Olympia level, they rewarded Fran, they rewarded Issa, Eduarda, I was at the Arnold last year, she won, or she no, did she win or she maybe
No.
she I don't know. I can't
Love
remember. She was
Eduarda's physique is probably like to me the epitome of wellness. I love
yeah,
her.
yeah. So you got they're kind of at the top in the pros. So like those physiques appear to be what wellness should be. And then sometimes you'll get a win like this. And so I wonder, are they just picking who's the best at that show in the sense of can you take away the win from her because she's too big when she's more conditioned and and has better, I don't know, symmetry or whatever the case may be than someone else, even though someone else might be more wellness in a structural sense,
Mm.
she's just better that day, I wonder if that's what's happening in some of these shows.
I mean, and I'm not like a huge fan of even her, just her overall look to me. It's like very much changed, very masculine. But that
Hmm.
day, she actually looked pretty. Like
Hmm.
she was graceful. Her makeup was done well. The hair she had on, like she did present very beautifully
Hmm.
that day. So I think it's all like, so, you know, again, on that day, who she was up against, her performance overall. Maybe they also award the efforts, you know, because
Hmm.
she transitioned from physique and she did come down. So I'm curious if that played a role in it too, seeing that she's like, oh, she really is fighting to be back into this wellness space a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. You don't see a whole lot of people coming down into like wellness. I mean, I haven't at least. I mean, I know that probably the most popular now is going to be Shanique Grant. I don't know if you're aware of
Yeah,
her, but
she's gonna do
she's
something.
coming in. Yeah, she's coming into wellness. But I feel like she's better fit for fitness, oh, for wellness than Tef because she's kind of that tweener physique where she can do women's physique and do wellness and still look
feminine.
the par, yeah, like with both divisions. I just don't see that with Tef. That's, that's the only thing. Yeah. Yeah.
She
Okay.
has also a very popular crowd. I noticed that whenever anybody questions Tef's physique, she has her clan that's just like, ah, why are you attacking her? I'm like, wow, she's built out a fan base. So back to the
Yeah.
media thing, it's like it really does play a role into all of
Some people do. They definitely do. That's yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how we'll see what happens.
yeah.
But I think the Olympia level at these big shows, I think the girls there have it locked down. I don't think anyone's cracking that. Not with that kind of physique, not
For
with
sure.
Tess. All right, let me see here. Where was the other one? Questions. 1 second. Sorry, I like clicked out. Like, all right. So how can someone get a better mindset to stay on track and be consistent?
Ooh, so I think a big misconception is that consistency starts with willpower, and it does not. It starts with your identity. So you cannot will your way into being consistent. It's really, believing that's who you are. If you keep saying I'm not consistent, then you're reinforcing that story.
Mhm.
So instead, I would say pick one simple, non-negotiable promise that you can actually keep, whether it's something as simple as like drink your water or, get in your protein, hitting your protein goals. Because once you keep that promise, you stack evidence that you're not that type of person who follows through. So over time, you're not just chasing the consistency game anymore. You're now just consistent, and that's a
Mhm.
big part of your identity work. It's not so much motivation. It's like stacking up the wins, and that's why even in my programming, like when we have our coaching calls, we always talk about like what the wins you have because we can give somebody these big plans and they start the minute they feel like I'm failing, they'll just check out. It's like again that extreme all in or all out. It's like this is the plan, and let's make sure for sure that we're at least hitting our water, and having
Mhm.
that mean something they check out. But they need to start building their confidence, with those wins. I don't know if you've ever read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I've heard of it, but I never read it. No.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal book. I've read it a few times. I recommend it to a lot of people because he talks about the basics of stacking up those wins. And he gives an example of somebody who was just walking into the gym, not even actually working out, just like even if it meant they stepped foot in a gym, but building out that habit. Anyways, long story short, they ended up hitting their goals. And so I think sometimes it's just the habit of building out the systems that you are going to set you up for success, and those
Mhm.
habits build confidence.
Okay, great, great. I'm gonna just machine gun some of these little short ones here. What's your pre-workout and post-workout meals?
My pre-workout meal right now is 5 ounces of salmon and about 100 grams of rice and about 4 ounces of greens. And my post-workout meal is about 50 grams of cream of rice, which is my favorite meal. I do the flavored creams of rice, so I make it like a dessert, and then I
Uh-huh.
my protein as a whey drip. And so it's like the sticky pudding on top of the, so it's glorious. I love having my post-workout
That
meal.
sounds good. I actually might
Yes.
go get some
And then
now.
I'll have a couple of rice cakes as well, especially post legs.
Nice, nice. Okay, and do you practice posing every day?
No, in prep I do, but off season I find that I'm practicing more either check-in pictures or in between sets. I still stay practicing, just getting the movement, but it's not like a time block that I have when in prep. It's like scheduled in my calendar, like it's a non-negotiable. This is happening with an
Mhm.
alarm and everything. So, I guess I could be better with that. There is something different when you're like chiseled and you're moving. You can see your poses versus, the lines start fading. It's not as exciting and
Right,
intense.
right. You're posing in the mirror, but you're not really seeing anything. It's
Yeah.
not doesn't have this doesn't have the same feel to it.
Yeah.
So how do you push yourself through days where you feel low energy or unmotivated?
Well, I think getting to the reason why. Is it because of lack of sleep? Is it, life circumstances? Everything that we do expands energy. I think sometimes we need to remember that, like, nobody's unlimited energy. So no matter what you're doing, whether it's, raising kids, doing your job, is it a high conversation day in your work? It's giving yourself that grace. Like there are times that my workouts are not the best because I've been high energy in other areas, putting out
Mm,
fires in my work, maybe having some stuff that's going on in my family that's causing me, just feels draining. We're
right.
human. It's okay. Like you got to give yourself grace. Like, you know what? I'll stack up the win because I went to the gym anyway.
Hmm.
Like it may not have been the best set, I may not have hit PRs. I may not have left thinking like that was my best workout, but I still showed up. So I think
Yeah.
it's one of those things that like we're human. Every day is not going to be the same, and you can have everything planned to a T, and yet life shows up. So it's just, okay, tomorrow's a new day. Every day is a new set of blessings. And so I get to wake up tomorrow or prioritize that. A lot of times when those days are like super consuming, I go to bed earlier and just get ready for the next day to start already.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting. I like you would think that like if you're upset or you're angry about something, that your lifts will be better. For me, it's the opposite. If I'm bothered emotionally about something, whether I'm upset about something or thinking about something, my lifts are terrible. I'm usually, but if those things don't get me motivated to lift. So I feel like if you can put whatever's going on out of your mind, if that's possible, that's sometimes
Yeah.
it's not, then you'll have better workouts. If you constantly dwell on what's going on outside, almost view the gym as a sanctuary, that can
Yes.
help sometimes. Of course, nothing is 100%, but it's just
And sometimes
an
it's popping
idea.
on a podcast instead of music while you're training, like
Right.
your mind in the right place and
Yeah.
just, distract from whatever's consuming you. Like that's something that I do frequently.
Yeah, same, same. So last question here. Do you ever struggle with body image, especially like after a show when you're not as, stage lean anymore, when you start gaining a little bit more body fat back on?
I have in the past. I would say I've maybe that's part of the growth that I should be, even more proud of now.
Mhm.
I think when our identity comes to our physique and our bodies, that is a really hard place to be because we've just celebrated these wins. Everybody's seeing you and they're recognizing, like strangers will tell you, oh, you must be a trainer or this and that. And it's like all of that feel so good. They're dopamine hits. And so as soon as you start not looking like that, it can be very hard. The other challenges have been like I take vacations usually right after a show, and that's not good for the reverse. And so I've learned things throughout the years, but I have genuinely come to a place where I have like so much gratitude for my body in all its shapes and sizes. And I will say one of that may be because I also have an incredible husband and support
Mhm.
system who like literally loves me no matter what I've looked like when I was, overweight after having a baby or pregnant. And so I'm grateful I have that. I think one of the biggest things though is like you got to love yourself first. And again, it goes back to identity. Like yes, having a strong physique it feels good and it's part of what's built my confidence, but I am so much more than a body. Like I know that I have what it takes, when I set my mind to something.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's just shifting your focus to a new challenge. If bodybuilding season chapter is transitioning to an off season and now you're putting on extra body fat, maybe it's time to like start a business or go put on some aggressive goals in another area of your life. What areas were neglected during the prep that now you can get to prioritize just to get you excited again about other things outside of your body.
Good. Yeah, I think those are all incredible points. And yeah, it's like sometimes just redirecting is good too, just getting your mind off of something. And so,
Mhm.
some things are just they'll solve themselves as long as you don't dwell on them. So, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
true.
the scale is also messes with my head a lot because that will be, and that I don't like the scale being a big tool for me because then
Mhm.
I do get in my head like, and for women, it could be hormonal, water retention. There's so many reasons why the scales can fluctuate 7 pounds within a day.
Yeah,
So, it's
true.
just really looking at these things again as data as opposed to, a part
Yeah.
of like, what makes you you.
Yeah, true, true. Well, Candy, I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been fun. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, just through social media, through Instagram or Facebook, because I still use Facebook. But
Uh,
Instagram, it's just my name, Candace Terrazas.
Awesome. And I'll link everything at the bottom, guys, so it'll be easy for you to reach out to her. And thanks again. You have a great
You
evening. Take
you too.
care.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.